Hey, what's up guys? This is the Super Saiyan Prodigy 1221 here. Gonna call me Andres or by my nickname Andy as well. Today I want to show you guys off some Isolde package combos that I've been working on. If you guys have seen my live stream recently on Twitch, I thought this was a pretty cool package to try and check out. If you guys know DB Grinder, you guys probably seen his player profile interview with dodgerwolf, and he's been playing a lot of DB rated lately. I think a lot at the end of last format where he was able to get, I think, top 20 or top 30. I want to believe in the ladder, and then right now I believe he's ranked third or fifth. He's at least top 5 right now because the ladder kind of fluctuates here and there, right? But he also runs the Utopic Future Dragon package. But I noticed that he ran the Isolde package, and that was something I really was interested in that I haven't really thought about because before I haven't really seen Isolde that much personally. I know that Infernoble played it, but I never really thought of to make use of it in this deck just because I always thought that a lot of the packages I've seen people run are like multiple of like the I guess kind of like the Isolde bricks in a way. Like I know Bobby Kenny, who got top 16 at the remote YCS, ran like an Isolde package with DDR, Fire Flint Lady. But I guess I never really thought of that you could just run like a mini package to where it's just like one equip spell and then one Renault to catch it back. Or to get it back, sorry. And then the idea just kind of came to me that like, maybe this isn't that bad of a package to try out because the Renault is a brick technically. You just have to kind of make use of it somehow by either putting it back into the deck with Phantasme or siding it out. I do side it out occasionally depending on the matchup and if I'm going second as well. And then the Living Fossil isn't that bad of a brick because you can just use an extender. The downsides of this package, like I said, is just that Renault is a really big brick. And then it's not like in the Dragoon package where if you draw like one of like the Dark Magician or the Red Eyes, you can at least make it useful later on because you'll still be able to get out your extra deck monster. This, I mean, you can still bring it out to like search something like Kagemusha Knight for follow-up. But I mean, other than that, you kind of just lost out on the potential pluses you could have gotten if these two cards were inside of your deck. But Isolde is also fairly decent though, because it's also a light monster, so then that way you can go ahead and have more different attribute fodder for your Axis Go Talker. And then this package can also help you play through something like Lancia, because it's pretty hard for this deck to get like strong link monsters while trying to play through a Lancia, because we just generally just banish a whole lot of our monsters in order to special summon out the Torn Scales so we can trigger it. But with the Isolde package is basically like you commit 2 warrior monsters and then you end up with a link 4, assuming everything goes off. But the only thing I don't like is that I ended up having to take the Underworld Goddess out, which I mean, it does come in clutch in some situations, but I feel like I have strong main deck hate, so if I have to deal with something that's hard to out for my version of deck to play, such as the Arrival Cybers and Ultimate Falcon, I think I have enough side deck hate to deal with it. But yeah, so that's the my general thoughts on the Isolde package. I think I'm gonna play test with this a couple of times more on DB rated, probably in a few more live streams that are gonna be coming up within I would say a week or two more. Probably I'm just gonna keep on playtesting it until Burst of Destiny comes out or until I brick enough with this version of the deck, like I did with Dragoon, to where it just infuriates me. But yeah, I'll probably play in like an Edo Pro Locals too this Saturday coming up. But yeah, I'm going to show you guys some replays that I found was a pretty interesting line of play, and it helps you play around Nibiru. So be right back. Alright guys, so here's combo number 1, and here I'm going to show you guys how you play through Nibiru, like such as if it's your only hand trap your opponent has in their hand, like you're going to be basically playing around it the entire time. Yep, and then for this package, I also play Skarm, and I feel like it's really strong with the follow-up that the Isolde can give to you. And so yeah, just a little bit misclick here because you want to dump the gloves because the gloves helps play around Nibiru since Rusty's going to be your 5th summon. So I'm a more advocate for summoning out Rusty as your 5th summon because then if you try to make an early Appaloosa, it's going to take more than 5 summons. And then it's really hard to bring out Rusty in later duels because you basically already went through your BA package, which is used for link climbing. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and dump an Ancient Cloak, set a Shade. And like I said, even if your opponent decides to nib you here, you still have the Shade Brigandine as well as the Boots in hand. And then if they nib you on the Boots summon, you can go ahead and tag out for gloves. I'm going to be showing you guys a later replay where I demonstrate what happens if they nib you. And then this here is the Isolde we're going to bring out. And then, like I said, you always have something in graveyard to work with and put up interruptions as follow-up, usually going into like a Break Sword or a Levier. And this is what I was talking about, where Isolde lets you search out a warrior monster that can't be normal summon or such summon, so you generally don't want to add a Phantom Knight name unless if it's gloves, and you know you won't have to take utilization of gloves. And then since I already play the Skarm, you know, I get another Tour Guide for follow-up. So basically, I get a really strong-ass normal summon for follow-up, and then I don't even have to commit any of my graveyard effects, and then my opponent's going to have to do something about this Tour Guide, because otherwise I'm going to get, you know, a Link 4 out of it with when the Seer brings back the Cherubini and start dumping more stuff into my graveyard. Yep, and then Isolde is going to go ahead and dump the Living Fossil, bring out a level 1 warrior monster. It's going to bring out the Renaud. Renaud is going to go ahead and add back the Living Fossil. And Living Fossil, generally, you know, don't use a PK name to bring back as the Link fodder. Generally, you know, try to use like maybe one of your Psychic monsters, one of your like extenders that aren't really doing anything in the graveyard. Graph as well can also work, just because its effects are negated, so it won't blow itself up. And here's where you go for the Appaloosa, and you basically prayed around Nib the entire time. See, so you have different options here. You can go for just a set Fogblade by searching out the boots if you don't want to commit too much to the board, or you can set up an IP Masquerena, Evil Swarm Nightmare, or a Dragoon. You can go for the IP Masquerena by going into Levier play, recycling back the Cloak. You can also go into Evil Swarm Nightmare or a Dragoon by having the Break Sword pop itself to make your monsters level 4. And we basically just tag out the gloves for the Torn Scales, so in that way, when we trigger the boots, it'll go ahead and activate the Torn Scales in the graveyard. And here we go ahead and grab Phantom Knight's Sword. If you decide to run Sword or Wings, I recommend it to search for it because it's just going to be used as discard fodder for Torn Scales. And I'd rather have the Fogblade in my deck since it actually does. It's a little bit more useful than Fogblade on field, in my opinion. It's more live most of the time. Yep, and then I dump out Cloak because I want to get the 800 attack boost on Rusty Bardish specifically, and then also just because we don't have, it's also decent for like follow-up, so that way I pretty much have like a boots to work with to search out and then trigger the Torn Scales and just special summon it out in case of my Tour Guide and Kagamucha Knight don't go through. And here we go for an Evil Swarm Nightmare. So I recommend this if this is something like a heavy combo deck, like Dragon Link for example, just because Dragon Link really wants to get their different attribute fodder into the graveyard, so they can use it for stuff like Chaos Space, Chaos Dragon Levianeer, Black and White Dragon, stuff like that. Then here, go ahead and trigger Skarm during the end phase. And then you end up on about 5 interruptions, and then a really good normal summon follow up on your turn. And then you also have the PK monsters to work with once they get detached off of the Evil Swarm Nightmare. And so yeah, so that's combo number 1 with just a tour guide. Alright, then here's combo number 2 with Ragged Gloves and any generic level 3 extender you play. You go ahead and make a shared beanie, dump the graph, bring out Scarm. Go ahead and trigger Rusty effect, dump an Ancient Cloak, set the Shade Brigandine. Go ahead and trigger Ancient Cloak, go ahead and search out Boots. Go ahead and special summon out Boots first, so that way in case they nib you on the Boot summon, you have something in the graveyard to tag out. To trigger Torrent Scales once you tag out it with the Ragged Gloves. Go ahead and bring out the Isolde effect. Go ahead and add the Kagemuchi. So pretty similar to the line of play we did for when we just had a tour guide in hand. Go ahead and then bring back the generic level 3 we used earlier. Go ahead and go for the Appaloosa. And you don't have to go exactly for a Phantom Knight's Sword. If you have like a good discard, like a danger monster, you can go ahead and add a Fog Blade as well, because you're going to be using the Torrent Scales to dump a Phantom Knight monster. And then so once you go Break Sword, all you just need is like 2 Phantom Knight monsters. So if you want, if you have like I said, a danger monster in hand that'll trigger once it's discarded and special summon out. If it's Rabbit, it'll special summon out the Snake from the deck, or if it's Snake, it'll summon itself out. So that way you have even more interruptions. But here I'm just showing you in case you just have like these specific card combinations to work with. I'm assuming you probably just have hand traps in your hand at that point that you really want to keep. Something like that, right? Go ahead and remember to always boost the Rusty. Remember, you can go for different lines of play depending on what other packages you run, such as Dragoon. You would probably go for a Leviair play to recycle back the Cloak for follow-up, or Gloves. And you go for the Evil Swarm Nightmare, if it's combo heavy deck. It just depends on whatever you're up against. Like if it was maybe like a trap deck, maybe I'd go for like a Nightmare Unicorn. Try to spin back one of their traps. Go ahead and go for Scarm. Scarm, add Tour Guide. Pretty much the same follow-up you have before, as well as the same number of interruptions. So let me go ahead and show you guys one more. This time it's going to be a 2-card combo. Alright, Dueling Book's acting a little bit weird. It's cutting off like some of the card art, but not really a big deal. We're going to go and show you guys this 2-card combo just using Torrent Scales and Silent Boots. It's a little bit more safer than the other 2 lines of play, since you had Torrent Scales to start with already, and then something in the graveyard to trigger it, such as if you're hit by something like Gamma or Herald of the Orange Light, or a Nibiru as well. It's just easier because you don't have to rely on searching it through your other effects, relying on them to go off. Yep, just go for a Graph, then bring out Scarm. And this time, since we already used the Boot special summon effect, we're going to go ahead and use the Sting Greaves. We're going to use Isolde effect, searching out the Kagemuchi Knight again. Go ahead and dump Living Fossil, sort of summon out the Renaud. Back Living Fossil. Go ahead, bring out Graph. Yeah, everything else you kind of want to keep in the graveyard, because you don't want to use Scarm because we want that for follow-up. Your other PK names. I wouldn't get rid of Scarms because we're gonna use it as Xyz material for board interruption. Go for our Appaloosa. Search out Fogblade. So the reason why we go for Fogblade here is because we have free discard fodder for Torn Scales, and we already have a Phantom Knight name in hand to work with. So I want to put up, have something set for our opponent in case if they have droplets in hand or a Dark Ruler no more. See, so like I said, you don't have to use a Boots Trap Search to revive a Phantom Knight monster, since all in those other combos we basically had to search out a trap specifically, so that way we can use Torn Scales to go ahead and set up essentially a monster reborn. And let's just get rid of a random card that we end up opening in our hands. Go ahead and use the sword, bring back the Stained Greaves. And remember, different lines of play here: IP, Masquerena, the Leviair, or Dragoon with the Leviair as well. And you do end up on one more interruption since you were able to search out the Fogblade, and then you still end up on the same amount of follow-up as before. And then you still end up at about on 5 interruptions as usual, but you have the Fogblade now, which is 6, and then 7 for most likely your opponent's going to have to link off with the monster that's Fogbladed, and then you can go ahead and make the Rusty Light with the Break Sword pop. And then let me go ahead and show you guys the combo lines in which how you play through a Nib right before you go for the Appaloosa when you summon out your monster from the graveyard. Alright, and then here we are. I just fast forwarded a bit, but let's say they just nib us right here, right? So then we're going to go ahead and have to get our board wiped. So Isolde, Segrave, Renaud, Torguide. You'll pretend that token over there is nib. Gonna go ahead, use Regular Gloves, tag out for the Torn Scales, Boots effect, add a trap. Any one that lets you revive a Phantom Knight monster. Discard the sword. Dump an Ancient Cloak for follow-up. Cloak effects. Yep, and then once again you have different lines of play here where if you go for Dragoon, you go for a Leviair, cycle back one of your PK names, and then link the token off for a Link Spider, and then use whatever PK name you brought out with the Leviair. So let's say Gloves. You know, I said this as an example to go into Verte. And then you end with the Dragoon and Leviair on field, as well as the Torguide Kagamucha Knight follow-up. Then here, target itself and the nib. So then that way, these two guys don't get banished. Then here, I just like to go for the Evil Swarm Nightmare. So less interruptions than usual, but you still at least end through at least 2 interruptions though. And this can also be an IP Masquerena as well, since this does open up, you know, you were able to get 2 PK names out on the field, so the IP Masquerena plus a token as well would work for a Nightmare Unicorn interruption. Then you still have, like I said, decent follow-up. So let me go ahead and show you guys how you play through Niv with gloves and any extender. Alright, here we are, right before the board wipe. So we just have the gloves and boots in the graveyard. Take out the gloves for Torn Scales. Discard any trap, or add any trap with boots. Let's just summon. Then send any Phantom Knight monster with Torn Scales. Recommend the cloak, so it's good follow up. It's pretty similar through like the last scenario in which you have just a gloves and a boots to work with already in your graveyard once they go for the nib. So as you can see, the line of play with the gloves and any extender, you know, you still always just have the gloves and boots to work with in graveyard anytime they try to nib you, and then you just end up with the same amount of interruptions as last line of play, and then the same amount of follow-up. So yeah, now let me go and show you guys the last one. Alright, and then here's the Torn Scales plus Boots line of play while playing through nib. So then here, once again, they nib us on the summon where we're right before we're about to go into an Appaloosa. Tokens, you know, and trigger boots, add a Fog Blade. So once again, we're going to add a Fog Blade here because we want more interruption, and then since we have the free discard fodder in hand, you know, let's just pretend we're going to be using Phantasme here. Send any trap that lets you special summon out a Phantom Knight monster, bring back out the Stained Greaves. Once again, you can just go for different lines of play depending on what other packages you run. And then your end board is a little bit stronger here with a Fire Blade since you're able to add it off of boots since you already have a Phantom Knight monster in graveyard and you didn't need to dump one with the Torn Scales, so you can bring it back and go for a Break Sword or a rank 3 play. Go ahead and trigger Skyrim in the end phase, add the Tour Guide. And then your follow-up is also a little bit stronger here since the Fog Blade is more than likely going to fall off, and then your opponent's going to have to be playing through an Evil Swarm Nightmare, in which case you detach the Torn Scales on your other, you know, Stained Greaves as well, and you can go ahead and bring back the Rusty during the end phase as well as trigger the Torn Scales. So the follow-up here is a little bit stronger, and then you do end up on one more interruption that does, in correlation, give you more follow-up as well. But yeah, so those are the lines of play I found out to be the most useful to me when I'm playing the Isolde package. I know dodgerwolf showcased some of his own combos on DB Grinder. I just felt that I prefer to get out Rusty first on my 5th summon, and also so then you know, I can just go ahead and go straight into the Appaloosa from after I use the Rusty effect as well, because some opponents actually get greedy with their nibs, and I like to take advantage of that. And then I believe also dodgerwolf had to go for the Isolde. What was it? Like, I think before he brings out the Rusty, because he plays the Utopic Future Dragon package, but I'm not really a big fan of that package, but I do find the Isolde package to be fairly decent in Phantom Knight monsters now that I've done some testing with it. Like I said, my overall thoughts on it are that it is a bit bricky because your engine kind of does shut off. You know, I guess it grabs you Kagamucha Knight for follow-up in case you hard draw one of these two pieces of the combo. But I mean, Living Fossil is still a decent extender. You know, just in case like your graph gets Ash Blossomed, you know, just go and bring back the graph and then go into your Rusty Bardiche from there. So it's not entirely bad in my opinion. And then not a whole lot of people expect the Isolde package in Phantom Knights, which is another reason why I think Bobby Kenny was able to do well with it and get to the remote dual YCS and qualify for it. It's because the lines of play aren't that well known as like the generic ones like maybe Julio and I have come up with. But yeah, so that's my take on the Isolde package. You know, a lot of people don't play Skarn, but I really like it. I wouldn't recommend really mixing it with the Dragoon package unless you want to play like 50 cards to like 60, like how Bobby Kenny did, I think, at the remote dual YCS. Just because, like, you know, the Dragoon bricks and then this Isolde package brick as well, or these Isolde bricks I should say as well. But yeah, so that's my opinion on the package overall. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and hope you guys have a nice day. Peace.